So you've been to many restaurants across the country, even across the world. I know that you're going to be going, to Italy again very shortly. We also serve fish on the menu. Just to take a second to talk about, because these are very popular hot menu items that people need to look for when they go to a restaurant. What are they looking for, and how should they ask their server or the manager of the restaurant? What questions might they ask to ascertain quality?
Sure. So, of course, fresh versus frozen, that doesn't mean quality anymore. Years ago, when something was frozen, people assumed that it was low quality. But now, the best quality comes from frozen products. And of course, if you ask a restaurant, a waitstaff, a chef, a restaurant owner, if you said your fish fresh or frozen, 9 out of 10 times they're gonna lie to you and say, my fish is fresh. Well, and the fresh part is not the lie. Because believe it or not, when you freeze fish, when you catch fresh fish and you freeze it within hours of the catch, by the time the restaurant gets it and thaws it, the fish is very fresh. Because what's the opposite of fresh? It's rotten. So the fish is fresh fish. It's really fresh fish. It's fresher than it was if it was never frozen. But chefs and restaurateurs, they say, oh no, we don't buy frozen, we don't buy frozen. I have no problem buying frozen, Carl. I have no problem whatsoever buying frozen, because I know that I can control how the fish is aged, how old the fish is, the age of the freshness. So, those rules are long gone about frozen being bad. Now, if the restaurant has fish around too long, okay, if they bought a bunch of bass and the bass hasn't sold after a week, after 10 days, after 8 days, and they say, you know what, the chef goes, let's freeze this because it's not gonna make the long haul here, it's not gonna make. Now that's something that I would consider fresh, because that's on its way downhill, and they're just trying to preserve their bottom line right now by taking that fish and freezing it and serving it at a later date. And of course, the freezers that you have in restaurants are totally different than the cryogenic blast freezers that they have on boats and that they have in production facilities that basically take this fish down to -80 almost instantly. And the way that this freezer is set up, the technology of this is it won't rupture the cells inside, so it won't get dry and it won't lose its water content, which is the biggest thing when you freeze stuff in your home freezer, or if I were to freeze it into one of my chest freezers or an upright freezer here in the restaurant, that's what happens. So other questions for quality, I would ask, what's local? And of course, you might be in the Midwest, you might be in the Plains. If they have fresh fish, freshwater fish in the area, they might be using a freshwater fish. They might be using a sustainably farmed raised fish that's from that area. When I was in Colorado, we served tilapia. Tilapia has a terrible rap worldwide for its production facilities, but the guy that was an hour and a half away from the restaurant that was raising tilapia did it very, very sustainably. No methyl testosterone, no other forms of antibiotics, and the food was pure. It was a totally vegetarian fed fish that was grown locally. So that right there was a perfect sustainable option for being in Colorado, where there's no oceans around. But now, of course, being in Colorado doesn't mean I can't get fresh fish when I worked there and lived there, because I used to buy from a company in Boston that used to ship me the same day. So if I called Boston by 12:30 their time, 10:30 in the morning Colorado time, they would actually get it on a 3-4 o'clock flight East Coast time, and I'd have that sitting in the airport in Denver or Colorado Springs by 5:30 at night. And that's same day service from Boston. So just because you're inland doesn't mean you can't get fresh fish. Your next question is to ask them, well, what's in season right now? So if it's June, July, and you're in Seattle, you're on the West Coast, it's salmon season, right? Ask them what's in season. They're gonna tell you, oh, we got salmon from the Columbia River, we got salmon from Alaska, we have salmon from British Columbia, we have salmon from everywhere. That's what's fresh and in right then and there. So that's another great way to determine the quality of fish.